I'm Minnie. Standing in the quiet room of the rented Victorian, I watch as the officers lead Sean and Mrs. Thompson away in handcuffs. Their voices, filled with outrage and disbelief, echo in the stillness, but I feel nothing but a deep sense of relief. The weight that has been pressing on my chest for months finally lifts, and I take a slow, steady breath. It all started when I had built a life I once only dreamed of. At my age, I had become a successful financial analyst in downtown San Francisco. By day, I was surrounded by the city's hustle and bustle, the towering glass buildings, and the ceaseless hum of ambition. By night, I retreated to my own little piece of heaven, a charming 2-story Victorian house on a quiet street in the Sunset District. The house wasn't extravagantly grand, but every inch of it was a testament to my hard work and sacrifice. I remember when I was in my mid-20s, I opened a dedicated house fund account. For years, I said no to weekend getaways, skipped dinners out, and worked countless late nights at the firm, all to save up for this dream. 5 years later, I held the keys in my purse and the mortgage in my name. It was more than just a place to live, it was my independence, my shield against the world. One Monday morning, Sean Thompson walked into my life. He was introduced as the new head of sales at the firm. Tall, with broad shoulders and deep blue eyes that seemed to see right through me, he carried himself with an air of confidence. His smile was warm and inviting, as if it was meant only for me. I told myself to stay focused on my career. I had just bought my house, and I had planned to pour all my energy into career growth. But Sean had a way of breaking down my defenses. In meetings, he would linger by my chair, asking insightful questions about my reports, showing that he had paid close attention. After a successful client pitch, he leaned in and said, "You've got an incredible talent, Minnie. Want to discuss some strategies over dinner?" Normally, I avoided mingling personal and professional lives. But that evening, I found myself sitting across from him at a cozy bistro near Market Street. We talked about everything but work, his travels around the world, my favorite spots in the city, and the little quirks of San Francisco life. I was surprised at how easily we laughed and how quickly the hours passed. By the end of the night, when he hailed a cab for me and walked me to my door, I was under his spell. When he asked where I lived, an instinct told me not to reveal the truth. There was something calculated in the way his eyes scanned my clothes, my handbag, and the cab meter. So, I lied and said I rented a simple apartment near the Civic Center. Sean mentioned that he was staying with his mother while looking for a place of his own. He made it sound like a temporary arrangement, almost a bit embarrassing. For some reason, this made me soften towards him. We seemed like two professionals working hard to build our futures. But later, when I locked myself inside my Victorian, I let out a long breath. I wasn't sure why I lied. Maybe it was fear that revealing I owned a house would change his perception of me. The house was my safe haven, my fortress, and I knew deep down that I had to protect it. As the weeks went by, our relationship blossomed. Sean was incredibly attentive. Flowers would arrive at my office, and he remembered every little thing I had ever mentioned. He stocked my refrigerator with my favorite almond milk and learned the exact way I liked my coffee. I found myself falling head over heels in love, a feeling I had only witnessed in others. However, I still kept the secret of my house. Whenever he dropped me off after a late dinner, I redirected him to a different neighborhood, pretending my apartment was on another street. When he spent the night for the first time, I told him this was my grandmother's house, and she was staying with relatives in another state, so I was just looking after it. He whistled in admiration, saying, "Your grandmother is so lucky. Victorian houses like this are worth a fortune these days." I forced a smile and casually repeated the lie, saying it was a blessing to stay here. Then, Sean told me he wanted me to meet his mother. "Mrs. Thompson will adore you," he said one Friday evening over dinner. His eyes held a flicker of expectation. "She's a bit protective, but once she gets to know you, she'll see what I see in you." I agreed, though a knot formed in my stomach. We met at an upscale restaurant in the Marina district the following Sunday. The place was elegant, with white tablecloths and pictures of the San Francisco waterfront on the walls. Mrs. Thompson was already seated. In her late 60s, she was tall and carried herself with an air of authority. Her gray hair was neatly styled in a short bob, and her diamond earrings sparkled under the soft light. When we approached, she rose and gave me a once-over. "So, this is Minnie," she said, her smile polite but somewhat rehearsed. Her voice had a measured cadence, like that of a strict school principal, kind on the surface but with an underlying sense of discipline. During the meal, she asked about my work, my family, and my future goals. Then, she dropped the bombshell. "And your grandmother, Sean mentioned she has a lovely house. Where exactly is it?" My fork froze midway to my mouth. I swallowed hard and kept my expression calm. "In Oregon," I replied smoothly. "She's staying with relatives now, but she let me stay there for a while." Her eyes narrowed slightly. "How generous of her. Is she in good health?" I smiled politely. "She has her ups and downs, but she's sharp and very careful with her affairs." She sipped her water, her gaze never leaving my face. "And she only has the one property?" "Yes," I answered, trying to keep my voice steady, though my heart was pounding. Sean reached across the table and gently touched my hand. "Mom, you're making Minnie feel like she's on trial." Mrs. Thompson smiled, but there was no real warmth in it. "I'm just interested. My son doesn't bring women home often, and I want to know the person who might become part of our family." Her words felt more like a warning than a friendly inquiry. After the meal, when we stepped outside, I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. Sean put his arm around me. "She's a bit tough, but don't take it personally," he said with a sheepish grin. "She's just overly protective since my dad left." The way he said it was meant to reassure me, but instead, it made me even more uneasy. There was something invasive about the way Mrs. Thompson questioned me, as if she was looking for my weaknesses. Our wedding was small by San Francisco standards. I had envisioned a simple ceremony, but Mrs. Thompson inserted herself into every decision. She chose the flowers, debated the seating arrangements, and even insisted on a particular bakery for the cake. When I suggested a vineyard in Napa for the reception, she dismissed it as too far and impractical and steered us towards a downtown hotel. Sean would always smile apologetically and say, "Mom's just trying to help. She has a lot of experience with events." It was easier to go along with her than to start an argument before our marriage had even properly begun. After the honeymoon was cancelled at the last minute due to a so-called major business opportunity, I returned to my Victorian house, now shared with my new husband. At first, things were sweet. Sean cooked breakfast, left me little love notes, and massaged my shoulders after long days at work. I thought the unease I felt before the wedding was just pre-wedding jitters. But as time went on, things started to change. Sean began working late, always answering his phone in hushed tones on the balcony. Whenever I entered the room, he would quickly close his laptop. Envelopes with official seals appeared and were quickly stuffed into his briefcase. Mrs. Thompson's visits became more frequent. Sometimes she would bring casseroles, other times stacks of papers she claimed were recipes or magazine clippings. I would often catch them whispering at the dining table, and they would fall silent as soon as I walked in. One evening, I returned home earlier than usual. I had left a late meeting downtown and took an earlier train. As I quietly entered the house, I heard voices coming from the kitchen. "Don't rush it," Sean said in a tense voice. "We don't have time to waste, Mrs. Thompson countered sharply. "Last time you hesitated, and look what happened. We can't afford another failure." I froze in the hallway, my heart pounding. I pressed myself against the wall, straining to hear more. "Relax," Sean muttered. "This time it's a whole house, not just a condo. And Minnie isn't stupid. All women think they're smart until love blinds them, Mrs. Thompson scoffed. She'll sign when the time is right. Just be ready. The paperwork is prepared. My heart felt like it was going to burst out of my chest. Paperwork? Houses? Past failures? The pieces started to fit together in a terrifying way. I quietly slipped back towards the front door, then opened it loudly and called out, "I'm home." Sean appeared in the kitchen doorway a moment later, smiling as if nothing had happened. "You're early. I thought you had that late review tonight." "They cancelled," I replied evenly. I glanced past him and saw Mrs. Thompson quickly tucking a stack of papers into her handbag. She gave me a wide smile. "Minnie, dear, you look pale. Long day at work?" I nodded, pretending to be tired. "Just exhausted. It's been a crazy week." "Well, soon you'll have time to rest," she said smoothly. The conversation drifted to small talk, but my mind was in turmoil. I knew then that my instinct to hide my house ownership had been right. Sean and his mother were like predators circling me, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. But I said nothing. I chose to keep silent, using it as a form of armor. I knew I couldn't confront them until I knew the full extent of their plans. So, I continued to smile at breakfast, pretending not to notice the whispered phone calls and Mrs. Thompson's frequent visits. One Tuesday evening, while Sean was out with clients, I was cleaning the upstairs bedroom. I bent down to pick up a sweater from the floor near his dresser and noticed that the bottom drawer didn't close properly. A corner of paper caught my eye. I pulled the drawer open and found a slim leather folder hidden beneath some old receipts and business cards. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside were property deeds with unfamiliar names, quick claim forms stamped with county seals, and signatures that looked suspiciously alike. There were also photographs of older women standing in front of houses, their smiles looking forced. On the back of one photo, a name was written, Mrs. Davis. Another had Helen Smith. At the bottom of the folder, I found 2 driver's licenses with Sean's picture but different names, Mark Johnson and Ryan Parker. The evidence was undeniable. Sean wasn't just hiding something, he was running a real estate fraud scheme, and Mrs. Thompson was involved. All the little signs, the whispered conversations, the strange envelopes, the constant pressure on me during the wedding planning, all made sense now. I stuffed the documents back into the folder, put it back in the drawer, and closed the dresser. I knew I needed proof, someone I could trust. That night, long after Sean had fallen asleep, I sat in my office with my phone in hand. I hesitated before calling Detective Lily Chen. We had been friends in college. While I went into finance, she chose a career in law enforcement and had worked her way up to the San Francisco Police Department's investigative division. When she answered the phone, I could hear the surprise in her voice. "Minnie? It's been ages," I whispered, glancing towards the bedroom where Sean slept. "I wouldn't be calling if it wasn't serious. I need to ask about someone discreetly." There was a pause, and then her tone became serious. "Tell me everything." The next day, we met at a small coffee shop near the Embarcadero. I handed her a slip of paper with the names I had found. Lily frowned as she read them. "You know these are aliases, right?" I nodded. "I need to know if there are any records." She promised to look into it but warned me, "If what you're saying is true, you're in danger. People like this don't stop until they're caught." 2 days later, Lily called me back. "You were right," she said gravely. "Sean Thompson, real name confirmed, but he's used at least 3 other identities in the past decade. And Mrs. Thompson has also been flagged in multiple real estate fraud and elder exploitation cases. They've been scamming women out of their properties, sometimes through marriage and forged deeds." I felt sick to my stomach. "Why aren't they in prison?" I asked. "Not enough evidence," she replied. "They cover their tracks well, and victims usually don't realize what's happening until it's too late." I was filled with rage and grief. all the love and affection I thought Sean had shown me were nothing but a carefully crafted lie. But beneath the pain, I felt a spark of determination. I had built my life from scratch, and I wasn't going to let them take it away. Lily and I came up with a plan. We found an actress, Mrs. Evelyn, a retired theater performer in her 70s, who could easily pass as my grandmother. She was warm-hearted yet had an air of authority. With her wire-rimmed glasses and a walking cane, she was the perfect fit. Next, Lily arranged for a trusted notary public to participate in the sting. The notary prepared real grant deed documents transferring the house from the grandmother to me. We also rented a Victorian house on the edge of Pacific Heights and filled it with old-fashioned furniture. Lily explained that every detail was crucial. If Sean and Mrs. Thompson suspected even a little bit that something was off, they would back out. I casually dropped the news at dinner one night. "Grandma's health is getting worse," I said, pushing my food around my plate. "She called me today and wants to make sure the house is legally mine. She doesn't trust banks anymore and wants to meet a notary next week." Sean froze for a second, then smiled sympathetically. "That's good, Minnie. It's important to have things sorted out. Do you need help finding a reliable notary?" The next day, Mrs. Thompson showed up unannounced. "Sean told me about your grandmother's decision. She's a wise woman, but don't trust just any notary. We know someone very discreet and experienced," she said, her eyes glinting. I tried to hide my excitement and said softly, "That might be helpful. Grandma can be quite particular." She gave me a thin smile, as if the game was already won. The days leading up to the meeting were the longest of my life. I lived with Sean, smiling and pretending everything was normal, while knowing that in a few days, his true face would be exposed. I rehearsed the scene with Mrs. Evelyn over and over again, making sure she knew every line and reaction. On the day of the meeting, we all arrived at the rented Victorian right on schedule. Mrs. Evelyn, in her role as my grandmother, sat in an armchair by the bay window, looking every bit the wise and gentle matriarch. A man in a dark suit, the real notary, arrived and laid out the official grant deed papers on the dining table. Just as the notary was about to start, Mrs. Thompson pulled out her phone and made a call. A few minutes later, a tall, thin man with slicked back hair arrived, carrying a leather folder. "This is Mr. Clark, our family's trusted notary," she announced smoothly. The atmosphere in the room changed immediately. Sean tried to keep things under control, saying, "Mom, maybe that's not necessary. We already have a notary here." But Mrs. Thompson was firm. "We should use someone we trust." The fake notary started unpacking his documents. I took a deep breath and glanced at Mrs. Evelyn, who gave me a slight nod. The real notary spoke first, his voice calm and authoritative. "Ma'am, I've been hired for this transfer, and I have the verified documents ready for signature." Mrs. Thompson's smile tightened. "We prefer someone with whom we have a long-standing relationship." She slid her folder across the table. Inside the deed, my name was alongside Sean's, creating joint ownership. Mrs. Evelyn leaned forward, feigning confusion. "Why does it say both of them? I thought this was just for Minnie." Mrs. Thompson quickly replied, "She's married now. Everything should be shared." I took a step forward and said softly, "Actually, Grandma wanted the house to be in my name only. That was her wish." Sean put his hand on my arm and said in a smooth voice, "Minnie, it's just a formality. We're building a life together. Sharing makes sense." I looked into his eyes, seeing the layers of lies he had told me. I smiled back, but this smile carried a weight he didn't understand. "I think it's time we stopped pretending," I said slowly. I took out a small USB drive from my bag and placed it on the table. I pressed play on my laptop, and the recorded conversation from the kitchen filled the room. The color drained from Sean's face. Mrs. Thompson froze, her hand still on the forged deed. Before they could react, the front door opened, and plainclothes officers stepped in. Detective Lily Chen was at the front. San Francisco Police Department, she announced. Step away from the table. The fake notary shrank back against the wall, his bravado gone. Sean tried to stand up, but an officer firmly placed a hand on his shoulder. Mrs. Thompson's voice rose in indignation. This is a family matter. You have no right. Lily cut her off. We have every right. Fraud, attempted theft, conspiracy. You're done. I stood there, my hand steady as I slid the stack of documents from Mrs. Thompson's folder towards Lily. There's more, I said clearly. Multiple deeds, forged signatures, and photos of other victims. It's all here. Lily nodded and started gathering the evidence. Sean pleaded, Minnie, you don't understand. This is all a mistake. But I looked at him with cold